recording this because we had a number of people who emailed who said they couldn't make it due to Passover, but if we could record it and then email the recording to them. So I know it's weird to use a mic when the room's so small, but that's why. Okay, so we're going to get started. Let me first say hello. My name is Adrienne Esposito. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment. I'm joined today by this lovely face on the screen. This is Dr. Vasilis. How do you pronounce your last name? Uh-oh, there's no voice. You're on mute, Vasilis. You think
I know, I'm sorry, apologies. Vasilis Vasiliou.
Vasiliou. And tell them where you're from.
Originally, or what am I?
Well, you could do both. I'm sure they'd be interested in that.
Well, I'm Greek in origin, but anyway, I'm at the Yale School of Public Health. I'm the chairman of the Department of Environmental Health Sciences, and I'm directing the Yale Superfund Research Center on emerging water contaminants and focused on 1.4 dioxane.
Thank you. So we're going to just do a little presentation tonight, and we're also going to take questions. Dr. Vasilis is in Connecticut right now at Yale. So let's talk about, oh, wait, I have a PowerPoint. Jordan's going to get us up and running here. Perfect. Thank you, Jordan. So 1,4-dioxane, some of you may have, how many of you have heard about this chemical? Very good. Okay, half the room, thank you. It's called the hidden carcinogen. It's a toxic chemical that unfortunately not only was used in industrial sites, but it also was used in products, household products. It actually is not an ingredient in those products, but rather a byproduct of the manufacturing process. So you'll never find it on a label because it's not an ingredient. One thing to know on Long Island is we get 100% of our drinking water from, this is a very good, aquifers. That's exactly right. Directly underneath our feet. So 3 million people live on top of our drinking water. What could possibly go wrong? Well, there are some things, and this illustration just gives you an idea. It's a couple of layers there. It's like think about a layer cake, not a layer cake like you would make where all the layers are straight, but rather a layer cake that I would make where all the layers are slanted and a little askew. That's what this is here. And there are 3 layers of aquifers, but you could see whatever we put on the surface seeps down and goes into that drinking water supply or aquifer system. 1,4-dioxane is not a natural chemical. It's man-made. Nature would never make such a thing, but it's a synthetic organic chemical. And unfortunately, some of the highest concentrations in drinking water were found here on Long Island. And that was after EPA surveyed 4,400 water suppliers across the nation. So on Long Island, we like to be number 1, but not number 1 when it comes to toxic in our drinking water. That number 1, we really don't want. It's classified as a likely human carcinogen, and there's a lifetime cancer risk of, the EPA has a guidance, a guidance health standard of 0.35 parts per billion. That's a very low standard. So that's because it is believed to be very toxic. The chemical is linked to tumors of the kidney, nasal cavity, and also the liver. All right, this is an old map. When we first did the EPA data, you could see that there was 1,4-dioxane spread about across Long Island. The vast majority of this came from old industrial use of that chemical. Concentrated more in Nassau County, but not limited to Nassau County as well. And I want to say that the red is where it was above the EPA guidance standard of 0.35 parts per billion. But it didn't only come from industrial use, also, unfortunately, from common household products. Citizens Campaign for the Environment, our organization, did the most comprehensive independent test of common household products, we think, anywhere in the world. We couldn't find anything about this in the scientific literature, and we looked. So in 2018 and 2019, we tested 80 common household products. We took them off the shelf. Tide, Palmolive dish soap, shampoos, body bath gels, baby bath products, you name it. And we had them tested by a New York State certified laboratory, certified by New York State Department of Health. We're like, how much 1,4-dioxide could these products have? It turns out a lot. 80% of the products tested had 1,4-dioxane. And that's only because, frankly, we tested some of the organic ones, and the ones that were claiming to be chemical-free, it turns out they actually were chemical-free. These were called the Dirty Dozen. We actually found out Victoria's Secret, and her secret was that she was poisoning us. 17,000 parts per billion. Remember, the health standard in drinking water or guidance standard was 0.35. This body bath gel had 17,000. And so did this other one. These were the top two, both by Victoria's Secret. Then there was Tide at 14,000. Ivory Snow, not pure as the driven snow, just so you know. It had 11,000 ppbs, and we could go on. There was some products that were clean. We called it the Green 15. Nature's Promise, if you go to Stop and Shop, they have a Nature's Promise line. Well, apparently Nature kept her promise because we did not find 1,4-dioxane in that product. Aveeno, Burt's Bees, and some other ones. But what happened was we then worked with New York State to develop, and to codify into law a drinking water standard for 1,4-dioxane. This was the first drinking water standard in the history of New York State and one of the first in the nation. And after a year of scientific review, New York State came out with a drinking water standard of 1 part per billion. And this was codified into the law in 2020. At that time, there were 31 water supply districts across Long Island that did not meet that standard, and they had to go out and purchase the filtration devices, which are quite pricey. They're not cheap. I'm not going to sugarcoat this to you guys, but they are necessary. Okay, we're not going to go through all that. One good thing that came out of this is that, and I don't know why my staff loves this photo, but this is me hanging over the rafters in the New York State Assembly at 10:30 at night, waiting for a bill to get called. We wrote a bill and passed a bill, believe it or not, that bans the 1,4-dioxane, that limits the amount of 1,4-dioxane that can be found in common household products, because there was no law in the books. So we're like, oh, we don't want drinking water suppliers to be filtering this out, and then someone uses Tide and it's 14,000 ppbs, it's going back in the drinking water. That doesn't make sense. So this bill limits the amount of 1,4-dioxane any product can have. It passed the Assembly, it passed the Senate, the governor signed it into the law, and it went into effect, full effect this year. And what the law does is that it limits to 1,000 parts per billion the amount that chemicals can have in it. So I'm happy to tell you, you ready for this? I have good news. I hardly ever get to give good news as an environmental advocate. I always have to give like gloom and doom, your water's contaminated, things a bit. No. The law is working. This law has caused industries across America to reformulate their products and reduce substantially the 1,4-dioxane in them. So we have products like, let me get to the chart. These, I just want you to know, before the law went into effect, we couldn't believe this one. This is a Spanish company's laundry soap, and it had 129,000 parts per billion of 1,4-dioxane in it. I got to tell you, it takes a lot to shock us. We were speechless. It takes a lot to make us speechless. That is crazy. 129,000 parts per billion. And there were other products also that were either close to 100,000 or over 100,000. So it was very scary that after we did the testing and after the law required that all companies, if they couldn't abide by the law, they have to report to the DEC that they needed a year extension and how much 1,4-dioxane was actually in the products. And at the last year, we had 1,500 products on the list that wanted an exemption, and they all had to reveal their 1,4-dioxane content. And that's how we have this data. We got it all off the DEC website, and it was scary. But the good news now is, and I'm sorry, is this expandable? Is this a smart board? Oh, it's not. Okay. Well, the good news is after it went into effect, people are complying. So when we first looked at the exemption, there were no laundry soaps, there was no Tide, no Gain. And we're like, call us cynical. That's okay. I was like, I don't believe that they didn't ask for a year extension, because they trundled into my office when we were lobbying for this bill. And they were like, we can't comply. You can't support this bill. It's not going to work. We're going to have to take Tide off the shelf. You're going to limit consumer choices. You're going to drive up the price. It can't be done. Long story short, we told them, too bad, and that we wanted you to reformulate because public health was too important. So when they didn't ask for an extension last year, we got very suspicious. So we went back to these stores and we took 5 major laundry soaps off the shelf and we tested them for 1,4-dioxane. And lo and behold, they were all in compliance. Were we shocked again? Yes, we were. But look how low they got it. They went from 14,000 ppbs to 200. Tide again. This one was 8,300 down to 500. Draft stage 1. That's the laundry soap that pediatricians urge moms to get when they have newborn children. It went from 10, which when we tested that one, we tested that because Maureen had 2 newborns. Well, one was a newborn, one was not a newborn. And we tested that 10,000 ppbs. Again, shocking. Down to 127. Why is this shocking? Because the industry, DuPont, Dow Chemical, we even had Lysol. I didn't even know that floor strippers or floor polishers had 1,4-dioxane. They were livid with us. They were lobbying against the bill. It can never be done. It's going to cost. They just complied. Nothing came off the shelf. Nothing had a cost increase. Consumers still have the choices. There was a law, they complied with the law, and now water districts will have less toxic chemicals going in there that we have to filter out. And not only are we happy to tell you that, but we're also very happy to tell you that industry reported to us, Procter & Gamble, that they're using the new formulation all across North America. So we say, you're welcome, California. You're welcome, Canada, because it really had quite an impact. So it was very fun. That's the end of my slideshow. But what I want to say now is that a couple of years ago, Facilis reached out to us from Yale. He said, I've been reading about your work on 1,4-dioxane. It's amazing, but he said it with his accent from Greece. So I can't say it as sexy as he does. And we want to partner with you on this first of its kind study that will look at the relationship between 1,4-dioxane in people's blood, their drinking water, and any potential public health impacts. And the reason for that is that the science on 1,4-dioxane and health has been done with rats, it's been done with wildlife, but not with humans. So we want to have good information. You may have heard about the EPA's recent new drinking water standard for those PFAS chemicals. Very, very toxic. We have good health studies on that. And that's why that health standard is down to 4 parts per trillion. But now we want good health studies. So I'm happy to say the public has embraced this study. We have over 300 people signed up for it. Vasilis and his colleague Barbara are going to talk about it right now.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Adrienne. I want to thank all of you. And I want to thank, most importantly, Barbara, that we work so close together to address the concerns of the residents of Long Island and also, on all over the world. What Adrienne has done so far, it's remarkable. And it has, I could say, it has drove to legislators to make these big decisions. So we are funded by the National Institute of Health, especially environmental health sciences, to have this Yale Superfund Research Center on emerging water contaminants. And I will explain you in a few, let me see if doesn't let me, okay. So what do we mean emerging contaminants of emerging concern? These are chemicals that have been detected in the global water supplies at trace levels for which the risk on human health is not yet known or not completely evaluated. So the idea is, that it's, as Adrienne said, these chemicals can cause cancer in animals, but we don't have enough data from humans to say, you know what, this is complete carcinogen, let's move on. Put a restriction on federal level. Anyway, so, and again, you have a lot of aquatic environment around you, the stream runoff, the industrial discharge, the sewage treatment, landfill leaching, precipitation, all this would eventually come to your drinking water. And the problem with the compound that I will tell you is it's very difficult. It's so far it cannot be filtered. It has to be a very expensive system to get rid of. So the compound we're talking about, I'm not gonna bug you too much. This is a chemical. It's dioxane. It's a clear, colorless, liquid organic heterocyclic compound. And I'm going to show you a map just to give you an idea of when this was synthesized. So it was synthesized first in 1863, and initially was used as a stabilizer, as we said before, in the late 50s. And it was to stabilize those organic solvents, and essentially was stopping the reaction between the solvent and the aluminum, because that interaction would degrade the solvent. So they put 1.4 dioxane to stabilize it. However, they never realized that dioxane is also a potential chemical. So anyway, to make a long story short, the US EPA, the US Environmental Protection Agency, initiated nationwide sampling on 1.4 dioxane, because it was start becoming evident that something is going on. There were a lot of studies in rats, in mice, that were saying this is a chemical carcinogen. I want to expand a little bit of what Adrienne was saying before. And I'm going to say, in addition to the solvent stabilizer, it's found in the medical, pharmaceutical, and biotechnical as a byproduct in there, but also in in rubber and plastic as a direct, and also as a byproduct, as Adrienne said. Printing inks and paints you can find in there, and in conjunction also with some TCA, which is an organic solvent for paints. All the adhesives for surface preparation application of epoxy adhesive, they have 1.4 dioxane. And of course, over there you can, because with the other volatiles, you can inhale it. One of the things I want to draw your attention is brake fluids, brake cleaning fluids, loosening fluids, rust remover, and the plain antifreeze and de-icing have concentration in a single-digit milligrams per liter. This is huge amounts. And eventually what will happen with that? It will end up to your water table, because cannot be filtered. The other thing is pesticides. The pesticides that are in use, they contain up to 20 to 50% of 1.4 dioxane in their formulation. That means 50% of the pesticides it is 1.4 dioxane. And I'm not going to say the consumer products because Adrienne has really looked the case. So I'm going to pass the next 3 slides to Barbara Massey, our program administrator of the P42. She's going to present you 3 or 4 slides for your area and for the Long Island, and then we're going to go to specifically to your areas. Barbara,
Yeah, thanks. Are you going to the next slide, Vasilis?
you want to talk about a little bit about the Long Island for the
Sure. As Adrian had said earlier, the program that we're part of is a Superfund program to support studies of exposure to the chemicals associated with Superfund sites. And so this is just a map created probably around 2015, a fabulous map looking at the concentrations of 1,4-dioxane in groundwater. And you can see in the Nassau County area, the dark red, where the highest concentrations of 1,4-dioxane were found. And here we are speaking with communities in Hicksville and Jericho in the Nassau County. So you can see that everything we're talking about today is really so relevant to your lives and your families. Next slide.
Hold on. There you go.
Yeah, and so here's a simple map. I think Adrienne had presented one as well, which really just highlights the number of Superfund sites that are located around Long Island. And so you can again see that concentration around Nassau County and smaller numbers as you go toward the more rural end of Long Island out toward the Hamptons. And so these come from old industries and some current industries in textiles, aeronautics, metal plating, dry cleaning, chemical production as well. Next slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit slow on the 2 screens.
Yeah, so this is just a quick rundown, which it sounds like everyone who's attending today is aware of the New York State regulation of water supplies since 2020. And so this was a tough, solid regulation that New York State put in place with a really stellar 1 part per billion max concentration that a municipal water supplier needed to meet. And if there's studies of water quality show that they were above that, action must be taken. And so it was a really solid piece of legislation. Deferrals were put in place in case a water supplier could not meet that 2-year requirement to get something in place. And New York State provided funding to support the very, very expensive advanced oxidation process systems that are required. So next slide. So I took a look on behalf of residents of Long Island, and you're probably looking too. It's always important, just take a look. I love looking at the studies that are out there for water quality from the Water District in Jericho. I pulled that out in Hicksville. And so what I love about New York compared to, I look at other states all the time and their transparency around reporting, is the New York State regulations have really created a lot of transparency around exactly what each water supplier is doing to meet the regulations. And so even as of April 2024, there's a great detailed report that's up on the Jericho Water District website that shows the really fantastic and dedicated and detailed work that the water district, the water supplier, is in fact doing all the time on behalf of residents. So there are, in fact, in case you're wondering, there's 25 wellheads in Jericho, and Jericho is putting in place this expensive advanced oxidation system in 7 wellheads, and that unto itself costs about $50 million to put that into place, if that gives you any sense of the expense of treating water to remove the 1,4-dioxane. And so they provided a really nice report. So of those 7 wells where they're putting the system in place, 5 of those wells, they're under construction, they're moving toward testing mode, they're thinking they're going to have all of these online in place, wellheads open again probably in the summer into the fall, and 2 wellheads where there's more significant challenges with construction. They've simply removed them from service. And so what's really interesting that's happening in New York State is that it's shifting from the concerns of the public health. Of course, you're still exposed in other ways to 1,4-dioxane, as Adrienne has highlighted, but the work that the water districts are doing on behalf of residents is happening, but the expense is extraordinary. Similarly in Hicksville, they're putting in place their systems for Hicksville. They're pretty much done with that phase. And at the cost of $70 million, they've been able to bring the advanced oxidation systems online, get that water quality below that target of 1 part per billion. And the one plant where there was additional challenges with some of the wellheads and getting the system in place, they simply took it offline. And that's really guidance that's also coming from the Department of Health in New York, that you can take them offline, you can mix the wellhead water. There's a number of different ways that a water district can meet that target of 1 part per billion. And all the water districts are working together, working with the state to find those different ways of maybe blending wellhead supplies to get that part per billion down to the appropriate concentration. But the next slide. The challenge here is that with each chemical that comes online, you're thinking PFAS is just coming out in the news. The expense is extraordinary. And so that really brings up a center like Yale Superfund to really engage in this policy, regulation, the science, the treatment, to really help this be a system that can work for everyone without it always becoming something, shall we call the sticker shock of trying to treat a chemical without really having the technology behind it. Vasilis?
Yes. I'll take it from here. And so essentially what I want to tell you is our center has 4 research projects that we're working on. And the project one is we're using animal models, zebrafish, mouse models, also human cell lines, liver cell lines, to find out how this chemical can cause cancer, and also to develop biomarkers by which we can detect early changes in people that are consuming this chemical in their water. So this is the project one. The project two, which is really what really this is all about, is we are trying to do an exposure assessment and epidemiology. We don't have large numbers of houses that we can recruit because of the budget restriction, the federal grant, but I think we can really do some really good first ever exposure assessment in terms of 1,4-dioxane. The areas that we were chosen was Long Island, and also as a secondary case is the North Carolina, the Cape Fear River, which is also high levels of pollution. The third project is about detecting these chemicals, developing sensors that will tell us, this water, it has 1,4-dioxane, and this could be could be wells, could be everything. But also what we would like to develop down the road is if we can develop those sensors that it could get a signal to your computer, to your iPhone, and will tell you, what areas that they are monitored, they have higher levels, not only 1,4-dioxane, but for other chemicals. And this is really to getting us to the next level that we can really at least inform the people of what are the levels of those pollutants in there. The fourth project, is what is all the money about. You heard about from Barbara and from Adrienne, the ways that you can get rid of 1,4-dioxane is reverse osmosis, and this reverse osmosis is really expensive. So the project for our engineers here, they're trying to develop small devices that will be function based on a very simple reaction based on your hydrogen peroxide that will degrade your 1.4 dioxane. So if we develop a device like that, that would be affordable for everybody, and also even, the state will be able to supply this, again, remember, to people with their own wells that they're using for drinking water, which are not, very well controlled. So this is the 4 projects that the NIA that we're doing here at Yale. And one of the things that was one more time, this is Water and Health Long Island study, the goal is to better understand how the levels of environmental chemicals in the drinking water affect the levels of these chemicals and measures of health in the blood. So if you're at least 18 years old, you live on Long Island, and you have been in the same home for at least 1 year, you may be eligible to join the study. Participation involves a home visit to collect water from your kitchen tap, a blood draw, and a questionnaire about you and your home. And we're going to start the phase 2 of this project starting in July or August of 2024. And we have 2 links in here that you can get more information about. In addition to these studies, we also plan to do some pilot projects with the advanced oxidation products. And this is where we really like to move ahead with this technology as long as we're developing. Our group our engineers have made a tremendous progress on this, and we hope that we will be able to use some of these ideas. So if you want to find out more about our Yale Superfund site, we have our website, and if you can follow us on the Twitter. And also in 2024, the News 12 Long Island series on Long Island water will inform you more about your drinking water, the Yale Superfund, and the Citizens Campaign for the environment. With that, I want to tell you that this is from our webpage and the home that you can go and find out all the information that you want. They are available to you, and you feel free to communicate with us. And this is what Adriana is doing with the community engagement. And, we both support each other in terms to really not just prevent the public health, but also increase wellness of our residents. One thing I want to tell you is, yes, it is bad for Long Island, although things getting better and better. We have been receiving calls from all over the country. I'm going to make this is from Ann Arbor, and you can see on your right-hand side the dioxin plumes just in Ann Arbor area, which they have areas now that they have major issues with that, not only with the drinking water. If you look at your left-hand side, they have found now that there is a residential exposure to 1.4 dioxane as an intrusion from their basement, just like radon. So this is kind of worrisome, and it's something that we're looking forward to discussing doing that. This is also from Burlington. The company in Burlington has discharged 1.4 dioxane into the Hoh River, and then you can see what kind of levels they were identified on this particular area after the discharge of this company. And if you go in here, the 1.4 dioxane, it was detected 1,300 times more than the EPA's health advisory goal. So you can see it's really high levels of exposure, and it's, as I said, it's not really biomonitoring. So what I'm trying to tell you, the other thing is, I'm not having it in here. We also work with a community in Florida, where they have similar issues, and really, actually, there are some areas in that side of the country that they have really maybe 90,000 times higher levels of 1.4 dioxane they have been detected, and not any studies have been done. So this is what we're doing in terms of trying to figure out what's going on. This is an emerging contaminant, and as I said, the problem with that is goes throughout, cannot be filtered with the simple filtration rates. With that, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to open it for discussion, answering questions that you have, and also we want to listen your concerns. We want to listen your ideas. We want to listen what you want us to do.
Okay,
to help you.
thank you so much, Vasilis. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Vasilis keeps calling me and saying that he wants the CCE team to go to Florida and North Carolina and Ann Arbor, and I keep saying, okay. So we'll see what happens with that. But bottom line is you just got a little tutorial on 1,4-dioxane and why this study is important and why Long Island was chosen. And I just want to say again, the whole research really depends on public participation. And all you have to do is, agree to have someone call you. They set the meeting up at your convenience. They go to your home, sit with you for like an hour or 45 minutes, fill out a questionnaire. A phlebologist, a trained phlebologist, will take a sample of your blood. And again, it's all confidential. And then you'll get the results back when the blood sample, has been processed. So it'll help understand the significance of this exposure better in the scientific community. I think you also get a gift card. It's nothing to write home about. But Barbara, don't they get a gift card for participating?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I don't know. It's not to Panera Bread or something. I don't know what it's to. It's like $20 or $25. I can't remember. I'm sorry. Not that that's the compelling reason, but just so, if you're going to sit for 45 minutes, you might as well get a gift card. So let me just see, anybody have any questions or comments, or just did you not maybe understand something and wanted to ask about it? Yes.
I just don't understand, does the 1.4 dioxin, does it build up in your system?
It's a great
Do
question.
you guys know that? I mean, is that why the cancer rates on the breast cancer rates on Long Island are so much higher than the rest of the country?
Okay, I'm going to let our PhD scientists answer this, but they do know the answer to that. The question is, does 1,4-dioxane build up in the blood cancer? Oh, you could hear? Okay.
I hear the question. That's a great question. So you digest this and it will immediately go to your liver. In the liver, it can undergo metabolism, and then it can generate some of the reactive oxygen species. And from there, it can be distributed to other tissues that it can interact with. So essentially, you're drinking it, you're breathing it, eventually it's going to go to your liver, and from your liver, it can be distributed to the other tissues. What we don't know is by what mechanism it's really causing the cancer. And that's what we're doing, the Project One, and we have quite a bit of, and I can tell you very simple, I'll give you a very simple example. So 1.4 dioxane induces one of the metabolic enzymes, which is called cytochrome P450, and that cytochrome P450, it can also activate other carcinogens which are present in your everyday exposure. So if you're having a little bit of water with, that has a little bit of dioxane and you have it on a daily basis, that means that your P450 levels will be available higher. So when you have, let's say, I'm going to be bad, if you have smoked meat that has diethyl nitrosamines in there, that will help those nitrosamines to become even more carcinogens. In addition to that, some of the metabolites of this 1.4 dioxane, it can damage your DNA. So if it binds to the DNA, that means that it can create mutations, and those mutations, it will create cancer. Now, the cancer will not happen within a year, but, once you have it, as you know, cancer, it may take 30 years. But one of the things that is, and I'm glad that you make this question, is The major concern we have in our society the last 50 years, 40 years, I would say, is an increase of the rate of what we called early onsets of cancers. You see cancers in people less than 40 years old, even 25 years old, which cannot be explained on the basis of mutations that they can be identified in your DNA, which means that whatever you have been exposed to, it really helps to develop those kind of cancers. And that's the problem.
So just thank you for asking that question. This is a really good one because I just want people to know that Vasilis is a national expert on 1,4-dioxane and is a trained epidemiologist. So it's a great question for him. But I just want to say also, 1,4-dioxane sadly is not Long Island's only challenge. The PFAS chemicals are known as the forever chemical. Those bonds are very strong. They're very difficult to break apart. They do build up and bioaccumulate in the body, and exposure can be very long lasting with them as well. So I don't think we can point to one thing for the breast cancer or other cancer rates across the island. And again, as you heard Vasilis say, that the science on this is evolving and is just begun being better understood. Yes. Yes, was your hand up or are you just waving your pen? Okay. They don't. Okay, so the question was, why do we need 1,4-dioxane in products? And the answer is we don't. It's actually not an ingredient. So it's not like Dow or DuPont is putting it in your dish soap or your shampoo. It actually forms as a byproduct of all the other ingredients they put in. So when we wrote the law, we asked them to reformulate so it doesn't form or filter it out after the product was made. So we believe what they did was reformulate so it wasn't formed in the first place. So it's not needed. It just was a byproduct. We actually, in fairness to those companies, that wasn't even tested for back when they started making Tide or Palmolive or whatever the dish soap or your shampoo is. That's why it's called an emerging contaminant. The science on it is emerging. And it just started being tested for by water suppliers, mandated by the EPA. I think it was in 2013 or 2015. So water suppliers didn't know either. And so the more they tested and when they found it, they've been very aggressive about putting on the filtration. But as you heard Vasilis say, it's not cheap. And our organization have been successfully lobbying the state of New York to provide grant money to the water suppliers to give them grants to buy these filtration devices so that not only can we have clean water, but we can keep water affordable as well. Water, as you know, not a luxury item, it's a necessity. So we want people to be able to continue to afford it and not have crazy water bills. So the state, I have to say, has been doing a really good job about pumping out those grants for both 1,4-dioxane filtration and also for the PFAS filtration devices. Yes.
So, well, it's like, so is this doing any good support or is it doing harm? Because I'm boiling everything out of it, I'm not going to keep up.
Vasilis, I'm going to let you answer this. She boils her water and she wants to know, does that aid in the removal of these emerging contaminants? At first, she filters it with Brita, which is a carbon filtration, and then she boils it.
Well,
He's got bad news for you.
I use the same filtration. The filtration is not good enough with the Brita. And as I said, 1,4-dioxane can go through the filters.
Yeah.
Now, boiling, melting point is good, but you have to boil quite a bit to get rid of 1,4-dioxane. It is volatile to these high temperatures, and you probably can go. But the problem is, if it's bonded to something else into the water. But I think boiling it, that's a very good point. Never, nobody else has asked that question. I think that's a very good way. What do you think, Barbara? I think boiling would do it.
It's interesting. We were talking about that just the other day with some students. It probably would remove some of the 1,4-dioxane only because you're probably evaporating away some of your water as you boil it, but it probably won't unto itself destroy the 1,4-dioxane in the water.
It will not, no.
Wouldn't it volatilize it and let it into the air, so then they're breathing it if they're in the kitchen as it's boiling?
Yes, yes, yes.
It's like going from the frying pan into the fire. So you gotta be careful. And I just want to say with the Brita, that does nothing for 1,4-dioxane, just so you know, because it's very difficult. Brita is actually okay for like your VOCs, volatile organic chemicals, sorry, and even PFAS, but it's not really as good as these large scale filtration devices that they're putting on.
I don't even know if it works for PFAS either.
Okay. Oh my God. We always get this question. I'll answer it and then I'm gonna turn it to you. The question is, should we drink bottled water? And the answer is, do you think bottled water is tested? It's not regulated. So we don't know what's in bottled water. At least your drinking water is tested repeatedly throughout the year as mandated by New York state law. And your drinking water from the tap is required to meet all state and federal regulations. Bottled water, we don't know what's in it. We've read reports about microplastics. We've read reports about benzene. We don't know what's in it. But I'm going to turn it over to Vasilis.
I'm gonna have exactly the same answer. You don't know what you get from the plastic. And in our house, I've thrown I have kids that they're athletes, and I throw it for, recycling, or not even all the plastics that we have, because I would not recommend it. And what Linda Burbam says, the former director of the NIH, says, I would not drink bottled water.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because we get to look at municipal water quality reports across the United States, and New York State has some of the highest regulations for municipal drinking water in the country. And so, yeah, you pay for it, as everyone in New York knows, but at the same time, those reports are really rigorous. If you dig down into the water quality reports, you look at the kind of tests they do, they're very rigorous, because the New York State Department of Health in turn requires how even the water quality tests are run in the first place. And so it's interesting, when you go over to Connecticut where we live, we have a number of private water companies. And so, you get something of the kind of minimum letter of the law, where I, in fact, look with jealousy at what is required for municipal drinking water in New York State, even though, of course, you pay for it. So, yeah, you can drink that water in New York State. Sure, it's great to put the Brita in there, because there are some things that even municipal water suppliers know they're not getting out. But they're doing a great job on the 1,4-dioxane, and now with the PFAS in place, they're going to be doing an equally good job over time to remove that from water. So it's really important, in fact, to, I hate to say it, read those water quality reports, because you learn so much about what they're taking out of your water and what they're doing for you. And I got to say, I'm going to say it again, CCE, thank you, because it's been years of work to get where New York State is now. Sure, there's going to be more emerging chemicals, as Vasilis pointed out. There's going to be more as they come. More knowledge is coming with all that has been dumped into the groundwater of this great nation during the Industrial Revolution and through the war years.
Right. And let me just say this stuff, for those of you, if you do drink bottled water, do not, please, just like as one helpful hint, take the bottle, if you leave it in the car and the car heats up and then the bottle cools down, that's like the worst thing you could do. don't drink bottled water after it's been heated up and cooled down. The plastic leaches, just want to say that is a word, a word to the wise there. Okay,
Still all aluminum, just like me.
yes. He doesn't mean steel aluminum. He meant steel or aluminum, but, okay, next question. The question is the water in the 5 boroughs of New York City safer than Long Island? I'll tell you, it's cleaner. And that's because we have different challenges. I know you missed the first half of the lecture, but New York City has one of the few unfiltered drinking water supplies in the nation. And that's because what New York City did was they bought up all of the land surrounding their water reservoirs in upstate so that nothing's draining into it. And they have pretty clean water.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a really great, oh, I don't know if there's a question there. You raise a really great point, Adrienne. We're locked into our history because you look even in Massachusetts and Boston, they did the same thing when they created the Quabbin Reservoir. Because when you look at municipal water supplies, surface water is better than well water. And so Long Island is locked into pulling from the aquifer and everything that got dumped into it. And surface water doesn't always have that challenge in terms of how it got contaminated. And so New York City ends up, ironically, with better water because of that. Similarly, Boston, but both Connecticut and Long Island are locked into wells, except for Hartford that did the same thing. And only Hartford in Connecticut has this vast reservoir. But it's crazy how that was not done historically. You don't know what to.
So to answer your question, yes, New York City has better water, but Queens used to drink from our aquifer and it got too polluted and they got hooked up to the reservoir, system. Yes. Well, now, yes. And as you know, what happened is they became very overpopulated or populated. And they, more and more was being found in that aquifer system. So yes, they jumped ship. Yes. Yes. So Facilis, I don't know if you could hear the question. She's asking about dermal exposure from products or from water on your hands, but also what about inhalation? If you're in the shower and you have hot water going, can you breathe in PFAS and 1,4-dioxane?
I think 1,4-dioxane will get it with droplets. Yes, in the shower, it is very plausible to have that exposure. And this is, I show you the study that they have from Ann Arbor in Michigan, where they afraid that they inhale that even in their basement. So as you can imagine in shower, when you have the shampoos that Adrienne talk about it, that they have really high levels, the hot water comes and you have this little evaporation with the water droplets formed with 1,4-dioxane. Eventually it's going to end up to your skin and to your lungs. Yes, this is a possible way of exposure. And if you go to EPA site, and you will find all this information available about how this can get into your body.
Okay, we could take one last question. You haven't asked one. Go ahead. Oh, okay. So the question is, how is Hicksville doing? Barbara, you looked at the data. Do you want to maybe bring that slide back up? Or as far as, excuse me, 1,4-dioxane is concerned. And the woman saying her bill has not gone up. She's read where the bills, other people's bills have gone up to help pay for it. But keep in mind, there's been a lot of grants that have been helping to pay for it so that your bill doesn't go up. But I think Hicksville still has a couple of more systems to obtain, Barbara.
Yeah, well, just in a nutshell, Hicksville is reporting that it's meeting the New York State standard for 1.4 1
Okay.
part per billion, and the wellheads that didn't meet it, they just shut down.
Ah, okay. So, yeah, no, we are not here. Listen, the water suppliers did not put the pollution in. They have been very aggressive and steadfast about meeting these standards. One of the complications is that there's been such a demand for the technology that sometimes they had to get on a waiting list, particularly for 1,4, because it was new technology. It's called advanced oxidation. So it was expensive. You had to wait. People wanted it all at once. So it got a little complicated. But we do have a water supplier with us today, Paul Granger. Did you want to chime in about that? We're happy to have you. Well, we only give accurate portrayals. You should know that, Paul. No. 38 years in the business here. Okay, so the wells that are offline are getting hooked up with the filtration systems. Will they come back online once they're all hooked up? And then they'll come back online. So that answers your question. So your bill might soon go up. No, I'm just kidding. Well, Hicksville in the past has had some definite drinking. I mean, I'll tell you honestly, Paul will kill me, but Hicksville had one of the highest levels of 1,4-dioxane in the nation at 33 parts per billion. But as soon as they found out, they acted responsibly, they closed the well. You know, when you don't know, you don't know. Then when you do know, the question is what was the action? So the action was swift, it was the right action. You know, and then as you know more, you do better. That's what emerging science is all about. There's always
And-
other things. We're learning more and more.
And my end, because I'm looking at this all the time. Thank you, Hicksville, for meticulous, transparent reporting.
There you go. Another compliment, Paul. All right, I saw your hand up. I don't want to leave a question unanswered. You can ahead. So I'm gonna let Paul, there has been a question about loss of water or infiltration, as it's called, because of pinholes in the pipes.
So has been installed in cause of that was one of our, the commonly used treatment bears. We had the problem before I came on board 8 years ago. So what we did is we studied it, and a lot of suppliers don't do is we put the treatment on. We really have to go back to the fundamentals and look at the corrosion control and increase. Was very aggressive. It's on the 6 side. So chemicals such as sodium hydroxide and hydrated lime are added to raise pH to prevent that pollution. So are you still experiencing any pinhole leaks, or is you did it? What do you do? And let it down. Okay. I experienced the same thing too.
But on like safe.
As long as they're NSF IPC with the packs. These plumbing code is installed by licensed plumbers.
Okay. Yeah, that's a no. No, I'm serious. I'm just, okay. All right, I just want to see if there's a question about 1,4-dioxane before we let Vasilis and Barbara go. Yes, you haven't asked that question yet. Oh, Bethpage. Okay, Barbara, do you have any insight into Bethpage Water District and what's you found in those water reports?
I didn't look, I apologize, but if you get the name of your questioner, I'm happy to send it to her and create just a quick summary for her if she likes.
I think she would really like that. Thank you. Francine, if you could get her name and email, then we'll make sure Barbara gets back to you. And also because I know there's a lot of concern in Bethpage because of the Bethpage navy plume, which, yeah, like we can't even talk about tonight. So, well, you know, it's, we can't do that topic tonight. It's just it's way too much, seriously, way too detailed. But I do know that, spoke recently to Congressman Swazi, who is going to launch a new phase of accountability for the Navy. So stay tuned. We're going to see what we can do there. All right. So I want to thank you all for coming out. News 12 might try to nab a couple of you for some interviews. So just letting you know. I hope you're going to say you felt this meeting was worthwhile. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We do appreciate your time. Please sign up for this study. Again, it really does not only benefit you, Long Island, but actually nationally. And it'll help us better understand what we need to do and what things we don't need to do. And that's actually kind of a big deal. So thank you for your time. And we appreciate you coming out on a Monday night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phyllis and Barbara. See you soon.
Thank you both. Bye.